We know the Joint Chiefs of Staff wanted to blow up airliners, Baltimore Sun, or if you let some terrorist group do it, like the World Trade Center, we know who to blame. And if there was an outside threat like a bin Laden, who was a known CIA asset in the 80s, he's the boogeyman they need.
That was Alex Jones predicting the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks back in July of 2011, 2 months before they happened. Alex Jones joins us on the show today because he also accurately predicted to the day that Joe Biden would drop out of the presidential race. He predicted Joe Biden would have a serious medical emergency, which we will talk about today, given the reports from Charlie Kirk that have been corroborated by both Jordan Schachtel at the Dossier and by RedState, that Joe Biden suffered a serious medical emergency in Las Vegas. Plus, Alex Jones has more predictions about what's going to happen next. Welcome, everybody, to the Liz Wheeler Show. Okay, what turned out to be the most controversial part of the show yesterday, your guys' comments slayed me, was the prayer. The St. Michael the Archangel prayer. This is a beautiful prayer, and I'm going to tell you why it was controversial and why we're going to keep saying it. But here's the prayer in case you missed it. It goes, St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl through the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. So I don't think that there was a single thing we said in the show yesterday that got more comments than that prayer. You guys left me so many comments, and I saw them. A lot of you are Protestants leaving me prayers saying, pray in Jesus' name only, don't pray to the saints, don't pray through the saints. A lot of people didn't want me to be praying at all. Those people, first of all, I'll address those people first. First of all, the reason that we pray is in order for our lives, to order our lives, I should say, to know God, to love God, and to serve God. Make no mistake, there is spiritual warfare around us all the time. That's why I picked the St. Michael prayer specifically, because it is a prayer about spiritual warfare. And we, you and I, are part of that spiritual warfare, whether or not we acknowledge it. So it's time we acknowledge it as we fight the evil that we can see before our very eyes that's targeting our families, that's targeting our country. And part of acknowledging that reality of spiritual warfare is rooting our worldview in reality. And reality, of course, is natural law. Reality is of God. That's the first part. The second part, and I love these types of conversations, by the way. My husband was a Protestant when I married him. We've been married almost 7 years. We've been together for almost 11 years. And we spent our first decade together discussing and debating theological differences. Big differences, small differences, nuanced differences. And I love that kind of discussion and debate. Surprise, surprise. It's kind of what we do with politics on this show usually. My husband and I do with theology and religion. But the reason that I love it is because it's actually what matters. The politicians and political leaders are going to come and go. Policy is going to go back and forth. Countries are going to rise and fall. But if we don't live our lives with our eyes on eternity, then none of those things matter. So these conversations are what matters. And to that end, we have a guest for you tomorrow who is a Protestant who converted to Catholicism, who understands both sides of the quote-unquote praying to saints, as Protestants call it, or asking for the intercession of saints and angels, as Catholics know it. And we're going to have this discussion because it's not only interesting, it really, really matters. Today's show is sponsored by First Cup Coffee. I am so thankful for this sponsor because any sponsor based enough and brave enough to advertise on this show deserves our support. And let me tell you, when you sign with a sponsor, they oftentimes send you their product to test it out so you can give a genuine and sincere endorsement. And my husband tested out this coffee for us, and he used to drink 1 cup of coffee every morning. And now, after starting to drink First Cup Coffee, he now drinks 1 whole pot of coffee every morning. I'm not making that up. That is a real thing, and I make fun of him for it. His favorite blend from First Cup is called the Boston Common. It's a medium dark roast, but they have all different kinds. Go to firstcup.com. Use my promo code Liz. You can save an additional 10% on your order. And if you subscribe, you can save an additional 10% for the life of your subscription. Like I said, go ahead and snag your bag. Support this company because they are supporting us in our endeavor to seek the truth. So again, go to firstcup.com. Use my promo code Liz and save 10% on your order. All right, as I said, Alex Jones is going to join us here on the show in just a moment. But to recap, in case you missed this yesterday, I'm back. After 8.5, 9 months off the air, I am back, and I could not be more excited to be back talking to you about things that are important every day, day in and day out. And no, the deep state did not 86 me. I was not canceled. I was not kidnapped. I was not killed. I had a baby. a little baby girl, a baby sister to Lady Baby, and I parted ways with the old production company that I had previously partnered with. I am now partners with Blaze Media. Could not be more excited to be partners with an organization that's so committed to free speech. And your guys' comments, I scrolled through late last night. I scrolled through all the comments on the first episode on YouTube, on X, on Facebook, and your guys' comments made my day. Thank you for the warm welcome back. I likewise am delighted to be back here with me. So keep leaving me those comments. We're going to start something where I respond to your comments on air on every show going forward. So keep those coming if you want to get a shout out on air. So what are we going to talk about today? A little context for what's going on here. On Monday, my friend Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA, put on his investigative journalism hat and reported some explosive details about an alleged medical emergency that President Biden experienced last week while on the way to Las Vegas. You all know Biden was scheduled to speak in Las Vegas, and then he backed out, supposedly due to a positive COVID-19 test. Who even takes COVID tests anymore? Biden then quarantined at his beach house in Delaware, and on Sunday, that letter was posted to his X account stating that Biden was dropping out of the presidential race. He was rejecting the Democrat nomination. He wouldn't seek re-election, although his office this morning claimed that he will address the nation tomorrow being Wednesday. This video is the last sighting of Joe Biden in public, dead or alive. Take a look at this.
You dropped out of the race, sir. Can Harris beat Trump?
Can Harris beat Trump, Mr. President?
He supposedly called into a Kamala Harris campaign event yesterday. It was just on the phone, and it was also really weird. Take a look at this.
Julie, if I didn't have COVID, I'd be sitting there with you, standing there with you. I'm so proud of what you've all done. I'm not going anywhere. It's kept me away a little bit, but I want people to remember that what we have done has been incredible, and we get so much more we're going to get done.
So good to hear our president's voice. Joe, I know you're still on the call.
It's mutual.
I knew you were still there. You're not going anywhere, Joe.
I'm watching you, kid. I'm watching you, kid. I love you.
I love you, Joe.
I think, as Gen Z says, it's really uncomfy to watch that. I don't know if you guys were watching the body language of the woman who was at the podium before Kamala. This woman has this look of terror on her face, this fake smile plastered on her face, and she's not blinking, and then she's moving back and forth, back and forth. It's called a nervous tick because she doesn't know what to expect with Biden on the phone. And what does that tell you? It just raises questions. Also really weird because Kamala Harris almost says the word recording, almost says the word recovery. She has this really weird Freudian slip. What does she mean? What is the real story? What exactly is Joe Biden recovering from? Well, according to Charlie Kirk, who sent out the following tweet, and I'm going to read you this tweet, but know before I read this, that this story has since been corroborated by independent journalist Jordan Schachtel, whom I not only consider a friend, but a very reliable reporter. This is what Charlie Kirk tweeted. He said, "Got a weird lead on a story that people should look into. I got a call from a source close to Las Vegas Metro," that's the police department. "The official story was that Joe Biden's trip was cut short last week due to COVID. However, according to this source, U.S. Secret Service informed Las Vegas Metro that there was an emergency situation involving Joe Biden and to close necessary streets so that the president could be transported immediately to University Medical, which they began to do in earnest. Then mysteriously there was a stand-down order, and the U.S. Secret Service informed local Vegas PD that they were going to medevac POTUS to Johns Hopkins, which they presumed meant fly him back east ASAP. Apparently the rumor mill in the police department was that Joe Biden was dying, or possibly already dead. I didn't think too much about this lead," Charlie tweets. "Seemed too wild to be true, but given that Joe Biden has been out of public sight for days and dropped out of the race via an X post, and his brother James indicated health was a factor, I'm beginning to grow more curious if COVID or something else has been more serious than reported," end quote. So this tweet from Charlie, the last time I looked at it, it had been viewed by over 20 million, 22 or 23 million people. And the last time I viewed it was an hour ago, so probably more even now. And this obviously set off a firestorm. RedState managing editor Jennifer Van Laar did some digging of her own, providing more verification of this mysterious alleged medical emergency. Van Laar tweeted, quote, "Reporters at RedState have also confirmed this story with the Las Vegas Metro Police Department sources. An additional source, not a medical person, in a position to know, tells me that Biden had stroke-like symptoms, but did not elaborate as to what those were. But when the doc traveling with Biden determined it wasn't a, quote, full stroke, they could treat on Air Force One en route to Andrews. The motorcade diverted to the airport. According to this source, it's believed Biden has had a transient ischemic attack, a TIA. A lot of us have heard of these things. It's essentially a stroke that resolves itself. That's my commentary, not Jennifer Van Laar's reporting here. So in light of this story, it makes a little more sense how Joe Biden's brother reacted. Biden's brother Frank's comments in recent days, this is what he said. He said, "I'm incredibly proud of my brother. Selfishly, I will be glad to have him back for whatever time we have left." Okay, you only say that if someone is dying, whatever time we have left. I don't say that when I'm visiting my sister. I don't say I'm so grateful for this vacation to Florida together for whatever time we have left, because I have no anticipation that that time is going to be over in the near future. You only say that if the person you're hanging out with or want to spend time with is dying. Remember, in that X post, the X post in which Biden supposedly dropped out of this presidential race, whoever wrote that letter and signed Biden's name did not state a reason why Biden was allegedly dropping out. So Biden's brother also said it really boils down to this. It has to do with his overall health and vitality, not anything cognitive, but he's a proud guy. It pisses him off that he shuffles when he walks. Okay, so there's, from this brother of the president, a better reason that Biden was dropping out than the president himself or whoever posted that letter on the president's X account gave. And you can tell that what the president's brother is saying might carry some water, because the president's team, the Biden camp, is really annoyed by it. A source close to the Biden camp dismissed the Frank Biden's concerns by calling him an alcoholic who hasn't spoken with Joe Biden in weeks. Imagine the audacity of dismissing someone's comments as an alcoholic because you don't want them to reveal the truth. In the words of Shakespeare, methinks thou protesteth too much. This is my analysis. I'm not a doctor. I am not at the beach house in Delaware, but I think Joe Biden is going to die soon. And I don't mean to say that. I don't mean to sound bombastic. I just think he's going to die soon, because all the evidence is pointing to that reality. There's also a weird phenomenon. Maybe you've observed this. This is held true in almost every instance where men who have dedicated their lives to their career at the expense of both their family and at the expense of their faith life, when they retire at a relatively advanced age, they die very soon thereafter. So Joe Biden is what, 80 something? He's dedicated his entire life to his career, 50 years in politics, at the expense of his family, certainly at the expense of his faith. When men like this retire, they typically die very soon thereafter. So there's that aspect of it, but there's also the aspect of, this is exactly what we're seeing. We're seeing all the signs that Joe Biden is on a severe and quick decline. The question I think we should all be asking is, if this is the case, if Joe Biden is dying or reaching the end of his life, if this is much more serious than they are letting on, why are they hiding this from us? With me now is perhaps the most canceled man on the internet. He was banned from X, formerly Twitter, back when it was Twitter, famously. And at the time I had said, this is an interesting choice for the deep state to choose Alex Jones to ban, because at the time, a lot of conservatives, Alex, didn't want to come to your defense. This was around the time of Sandy Hook. And I said, you know what? This is a deliberate strategy they're using to move the Overton window on censorship, because they picked someone who, the establishment conservatives didn't want to come to your defense because they didn't want to be associated with some of the things that you were saying. And I recognized at the time that was their way of not only coming after all of us, but really trying to silence you. I appreciate you joining the show today. But talk to me about the moment that you realized in this whole censorship saga that you have undergone, or that you're undergoing. Tell me the moment you realized that they were coming after you.
Well, I've been on there 30 years, so I'm 50 now. So I figured out the deep state was after me a very long time ago. But Sandy Hook happened 11 years ago. I barely ever even talked about it. The internet questioned it. There were, billions of views on YouTube. Some videos had like 200 million views of other people questioning it. They entered in evidence in the court trials against me 22 minutes. So that's what they had. They sued me 5-6 years after Sandy Hook. They did years of depositions and then said we didn't give them any of the discovery. There was no discovery. They're like, where's the plan to make money off of us? Where's the plan to do all this? And we're like, it didn't exist. I do got tons of news every day. I just read a bunch of articles, play clips, interview people. There's some preparation goes in, but not like long-term strategic propaganda like they do, like the Democratic Party does, like corporate media does. I did no preparation for this interview. I just didn't even know what you wanted me on about. I just came on. So it's the same thing. So then they defaulted me in Texas, in Austin, that's like as bad as D.C. or New York, and in Connecticut. It was all coordinated, run by HBO. They had people putting powder on the judges, and they were like clicking the movie things, and those were show trials, literally. And people figure that out watching it. Like, why does she say his lawyers can't talk? Well, why is this happening? So they did beta test on me. Even the Wall Street Journal 6 years ago when this all started said, we're beta testing this on Julian Assange and Alex Jones. And you nailed it. They said, when the left doesn't defend Assange, we'll have them. When the right doesn't defend Alex, we'll have them. We'll get them all. And so, but this process went on so long, people kind of saw through it. Then they saw the persecution of Trump. But then when they won the two cases, which they'd already won, the judges found me guilty, but had like damages trials that they said were real trials. A PR firm out of New York came out and bragged and said, no, we ran all this. We went back into his history, blew it all up, said he was doing things currently he never did, and then launched that whole operation. And then 6 weeks ago, it's a long story, but the federal judge is court appointed in my bankruptcy. He's not a bad guy. They used, though, the CRO and the U.S. trustee appointed by the Justice Department to try to shut us down. And I said then, without a court order they did this, I said, this isn't about me. They're ready to kill Trump or launch World War III. I don't know. Then it came out in court later. They said, yeah, we were told by the U.S. trustee's office, the Justice Department, that could get involved in cases. We want Jones off the air now. And so I was like, whoa, that was 4 weeks ago. I was like, whoa. And I said on air when Laura Logan was here, I said, this isn't about me. They're about to kill Trump. And so that's how I was able to call it, because they were that desperate, because they know I'm really good at questioning narratives. And when they tried to kill Trump and whatever else they're planning to do, they don't want me on air when that happens, basically challenging it, hoping just because I was the guy 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that was the main guy doing it. Now everybody does it. So I'm kind of obsolete in a way. It's kind of funny. It's like, okay, I'm the first guy to invent the wheel in a way, politically questioning these big events, whether they happened or not. We have a right to do it. That's why they shouldn't cancel Democrats that say Trump didn't get shot and that was staged. Of course, that's idiotic. There's all these witnesses, people died. It's on TV. But they have a right to question it. Joy Reid and Joy Behar and Keith Olbermann, they're morons. Don't fire them. Don't sue them. Don't arrest them. We have a right to challenge them back. But when I question things like Jussie Smollett or WMDs in Iraq or other things, usually I've been right. But the point is that, yes, they admitted I was patient zero. And they later bragged on CNN, MSNBC that now that we've banned Alex Jones, we're going to ban Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump. And this has been our plan all along. So, like villains in a movie, their downfall was bragging. And I remember always watching, like, different comic book movies and sci-fi movies. Why does the villain monologue? Well, I guess that's a thing of criminology where they monologue. So the system monologued about it all, and that's how people saw through it. So thank God they bragged about it, because they bragged about it.
They did. I mean, it's not my speculation or my analysis. They admitted that they were using you to move the Overton window. And it's what's interesting. So I don't know if you spend a lot of time scrolling through your X feed, doom scrolling or not, but you're a meme on X, and in the positive way, because there's been some things that you have predicted correctly over the past 30 years, particularly, I guess, over the past 15 years. I mean, you predicted COVID, exactly how the deep state, the globalist deep state, was going to use a virus that they engineered to unleash tyranny on us. You predicted, and this is the one that I think is the funniest, because that clip of you goes around every year or so about the fluoride turning frogs gay, and people made so much fun of you, and it turns out the studies actually show that's true now, which just can't beat that. That's so funny. You also, on a more somber note, predicted 9/11, the 9/11 attacks, almost exactly how they happened. Airliners being hijacked into the World Trade Center. And listen, Tucker Carlson tells me that you are a prophet for predicting something like that. I have to ask you, in a little bit more practical of a sense, how did you come to that conclusion? How were you able to predict that specific event? Because the answer to that question is key to asking you what's going to come after this.
Well, that's a really good question. 95% of it is just the Rockefeller Foundation, the Carnegie Endowment, and they run the CIA. They make the decisions. The big tax-free foundations, Ford, Carnegie, Rockefeller, and a few others, for really 100 years, since the 20s, they've made the decisions. And this is all in mainline policy reports. It's not hidden. It's kind of PhD level stuff. So I set out decades ago to learn who runs things, and it's just they talk about it like we're children, or they're speaking another language, we don't hear it. So on the COVID thing, they said we're going to use Disease X to lock down society, to end the capitalist society, and to break the work ethic. And we're going to use masks and lockdowns and banning sporting events. And we're going to use that to introduce totalitarianism for carbon lockdowns that are going to come. That was 2010. So I'd love to say, oh, I'm so incredibly smart. No, in the full report, I'm reading the Rockefeller Operation Lockstep plan and others on air, and then knowing that they are in charge. So that was an issue. So then later, people find that, 12, 13 years later, and of course they cut out the part where I'm reading the report because it makes it more amazing, like I'm Nostradamus. Okay, no, what stops the tyranny is people learning the documents. And it's been the same basically on every major issue. And then a lot of it is dead reckoning and being immersed in this. I mean, I remember 2 weeks ago, or now 16 days ago, I could tell by Biden's signals he was going to step down. And I figured it'd take about 2 weeks for him to get backroom deals and agreements. He'd still be president, but he would not be the nominee. So I sat there in a break and I went, bet he takes 2 weeks and I bet he drops out on a weekend. So I said on the 20th or 21st, he'll drop out, I think, in 2 weeks. And that was just me learning the rhythm of politics about, so a lot of it's like sitting at the beach for hours, you're watching the waves come in, and your kids are building sandcastles. You just kind of learn it seems like every 20th wave's really big, and they get smaller, they get bigger. You're just kind of the rhythm of things. And so 95% of what I do is just their own admissions. You just got to actually believe what they're saying. And then the rest of it is just picking up the rhythm. But yeah, now on 9/11, it's a long story, but they were all over the news saying bin Laden's about to attack and bin Laden's about to kill you. And they were hyping it up. There were thousands of data points went into it. And then I knew the feds had tried to blow up the World Trade Center the first time in 1992, right before Bush left office, Herbert Walker Bush. And then I just knew a lot of the angles that were going on. And then it just came to me. I was like, I bet they try to hijack jet airliners and fly in the World Trade Center. And maybe that was in the ether because I wasn't an X-Files fan. But months before I said that, they had an X-Files episode, a spinoff called Lone Gunman, where the government hijacks a jumbo jet to fly in the World Trade Center to declare martial law and launch war in Afghanistan. Now, right after it happened, everybody said, hey, have you seen this? And then Chris Carter later came out and said the CIA came to him and told him to do that production. That's in whatever the Hollywood newspapers were. I think it was in Variety at the time. So maybe I am psychic, and I was picking up other people that had seen the show, but I really wasn't a fiction guy. I mean, I'd go see Gladiator back then, or I'd go see movies, but I was not a fiction. I didn't watch soap operas. I didn't watch TV shows. I was a news junkie. That's basically all I did. But occasionally, I was on vacation and I watched an old Gunsmoke, episode or something if I saw it on TV in a hotel room, but not a big fiction consumer. Certainly not a connoisseur. So I'd love to build myself up. Forget Alex Jones. Talk to Chris Carter. He had a show 6 months before 9/11 of basically exactly what happened. So this stuff is out there. But when it comes to calling Biden stepping down to the exact day, that is my understanding now. It's gotten way more advanced. And there's a lot of other angles to this. I said 1 month before Tucker got fired, which when he was really convinced, we talk all the time, but he called me and said, how'd you call that? And I said, man, I saw you on TV exposing Big Pharma and the war. And I said, no way this guy's still on air. He'll be fired. Because I was watching the show the next day. I hardly ever watch it live on TV. I was watching it like 6 a.m. when I got up the next morning. And I said, there's no way the deep state's going to fire him. It'll probably take Murdoch a month to make the decision. So it was just a gut thing. And so I went on the air the next day and I said, within 1 month, Tucker will be fired. 29 days later, he was fired. And Tucker's like, okay, or who are you talking to? And I was like, I just said that. And it's not like I just say a lot of stuff. It's like, it is getting crazy how these predictions are coming true.
Okay, well, I want to get back to, in a moment, actually, I want to ask you what's going to come next in, I guess, the large scale for our country. But I want to ask you about Biden, since we touched on that, and your prediction was eerily accurate to the day on which day he would step down. And it was odd, right? Sunday in the afternoon on X, we didn't see him make a statement. Very odd, very shady, very weird. Signature didn't look exactly like his signature with the underline. A lot of creepy, weird things going on there. Who's behind that? Who made him step down? Like, I have a very hard time believing that it was him.
Well, I mean, we know the answer to that. The question is, what are the specifics? We don't. Certainly, I don't know that. It's a big deal. I mean, Biden's been out of his mind for years, the perfect puppet, and now they know that no one's going to buy a new election steal if it's him. So they want Kamala or Newsom or Hillary or Big Mike, Michelle Obama, or Kamala, anybody but him, because they think a new face will at least buy they were able to steal it. So that's why I've been predicting they would remove Biden imminently, which they did. The issue is, and Charlie Kirk has sources that are amazing. He talked to Secret Service sources. I'm doing a report on this right after I get off with you. This just broke like 35 minutes ago. And they said, no, he was in Vegas and then got emergency medevaced out. And now his brother says, yeah, he's in his last days, or the exact quote is, hope he enjoys the last days of his life. And so, I can get the exact quote in a moment. But the point is that Biden was refusing to step down. And I said last week, will he have a medical emergency? In fact, crew, you're in there. I said Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Will Biden have a medical emergency? I said, he's so old, it might actually be real. But I said, I think we're in the time of coups. They just tried to kill Trump. That failed. Biden's refusing to step down. It's the same deep state that wants full control and people will follow their orders. And I said multiple times last week, this is a prediction that isn't, it's out, but hasn't gotten the major 10 million views or whatever once this is out. But I'm telling the crew right now, they know they'll find it. I said repeatedly, I think Biden will have a medical emergency and will be removed if he hasn't stepped down by this weekend. And then on Wednesday, he said, I'm sick, but it was on Twitter, and I might step down if I'm sick. And I said, that's his people running his Twitter. Has he died? Has he had a stroke? Are they covering up like Woodrow Wilson what's really happened? Then I said, wow, now, and Rob Dew was with me in Northern California covering Bohemian Grove. He said, man, you called it. You said, on Wednesday, it's probably not him. And as we were flying out Thursday, he said, man, I bet he's actually in a coma or something. So a lot of this is just wargaming things that are going on, being fully immersed in it. But yeah, that's going to be another viral clip when they dig it up that I said this week repeatedly. I think he'll have a medical emergency and it'll be gone by the weekend. Because earlier I said it'll be gone by the 20th, 21st. But then I thought, they got these doctors shooting him up with all these drugs and things. All they got to do is give him something else. So is he in a coma right now? 5 days since we've seen him. Fox News is asking, here it is right here. Proof of life, please. Fox host asking if Biden is even still alive. Brett Baer. Here's another one. Biden's brother says he will enjoy whatever time he has left. You look at the signature that's not on U.S. letterhead of a president. When have you ever seen that? Looks completely different. I mean, this is crazy time.
So who's going to be the nominee? I mean, I know that when I say Joe Biden endorsed Kamala, we don't actually know if it was Joe Biden or not, but the mouthpieces of the White House say that Joe Biden endorsed Kamala Harris. Pelosi's come out and says she endorses Kamala Harris. Is it going to be Kamala?
It needs to be Kamala on paper under the law to get the $198 million as of yesterday. It's probably up now. That is held under the law under her or Biden. But the Democrats have said that they want to have kind of a weird snap primary where the delegates or the donors with the delegates decide who's there to at least act like it's Democratic. And so I don't know what they're going to pull. I mean, the sky's the limit. They already tried to kill Trump, in my view. They already tried to take Trump off the ballot. They've already done all this. So we're really seeing the desperate coup of the Democrat-controlled deep state out in the open right now. They've been drug out like a vampire, like Count Dracula, out of his crypt under the castle into the broad daylight, and they're going to disintegrate.
Okay, what's going to be the next big thing? I mean, I say this as in the last 10 days, we've had the assassination attempt of the former president, who's the current nominee, or the current Republican nominee for president. We've had the incumbent president Biden ostensibly step down, reject the nomination for his party. We had COVID 2 years ago. What's coming next?
Cyber attack is what I said a week ago, and then most experts agree that Microsoft was some kind of test of taking over the system. I think that was a test of the mega cyber attack. That was already the biggest in history that happened Thursday. And expanded war with Russia, power outages. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but this is what's in the cards. More assassination attempts on Trump. A massive false flag against a black college or church or synagogue blamed on Trump or Hispanic center, something along those lines. Because, we're not in Kansas anymore. We are in Cloud Cuckoo now with a desperate, out-of-control elite that are losing their war with Russia, that are losing their war with the people. The borders are wide open. The whole world's turning against them, and they desperately want to try to maintain control and change the subject. So I would say right now the sky's the limit.
All right, talk to me a little bit about the assassination attempt against Trump. I think that most people, at least most people on the right, see a lot of red flags when it comes to what happened. It's not just the few people who are saying, was that an inside job? Was the Secret Service? Did they deliberately allow it? Did they indirectly allow it? What is your analysis for what happened behind the scenes in the lead up to that shooting?
Well, it's Senator Johnson saying he thinks it was a stand down to cover up. It's Congressman Mills of Florida, who was a sniper team leader in all over the world, saying that he had to have help. I interviewed today Dallas Alexander, who has the longest sniper kill at 2.2 miles, saying he believes it's a total inside job. Robert J. O'Neill, the guy that reportedly killed bin Laden, saying the same thing. The list goes on and on and on of experts saying he's wandering around below the deal. He's got a rangefinder. They question him. He's on the roof 26 minutes. He's crawling around with a gun. If I was walking around behind a 7-Eleven for 26 minutes, the cops are going to pull up. If I was wandering around an apartment complex looking in cars for 25 minutes, cops are going to come. But this guy is 450 feet, which is inches, with a gun. But I can shoot with a rifle like that, a quarter-inch group all day long with a red dot. I got handguns I can shoot bullseye at 100 yards with. Certainly hit metal targets that big. So this was a total stand down. And Trump now has said that if he would have known the guy was running around, he wouldn't have gone out on stage. So they didn't tell Trump. And all these engineers and experts, and I've talked to so many of them, and they've done the math on it. You're hearing all those pop, 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 all those different sounds. Those aren't echoes. Those are different guns. And so now we learn the trajectory shows he's up on that flat top roof, barely even peaked, which they couldn't get on because it was so dangerous, like one of the smallest slants I've ever seen, less than 5%. These are the ridiculous excuses. And then right under the shooter, Crooks, the patsy, was another open window. And the people I've talked to that are top snipers, they say the sound isn't so much that of a silenced gun, but it's a gun that's back in a window where it's being muffled as they shoot out of a window. They now admit open windows. And so where the shooter was, where Crooks was on top of the building that was the police command center. So this is ridiculous. But they thought Trump would be dead. They thought there'd be such hysteria that people wouldn't look back. Mayorkas would control the investigation, which he's doing now. Mayorkas appoints Trump hater to independent review panel on Trump assassination attempt. This is ridiculous.
It is, and it's weird to me that there's no social media footprint for a 20-year-old. We all know that Gen Z lives online, and not only do they live online, they've had cell phones since they were babies, essentially. There's just no way that a 20-year-old young man, especially one who has the profile seemingly of an incel, is going to not have a social media footprint. That's too weird.
Oh yeah, and nothing. He looks like you're too young, but King of the Hill, where Hank Hill opens the door and the cousin's all green. He's always on the computer, and he's like a nerd, a computer nerd. He goes, "Oh God," he looks like a space alien. This guy was like one of these internet space aliens who couldn't even brush his teeth, and then he's flying a drone over hours before. He's got a rangefinder. He's doing all this, and he's left up there for 26 minutes to wander around. This screams Lee Harvey Oswald 2.0. This screams Patsy.
Yeah, it certainly seems shady to me. So if the CIA, the FBI, basically the deep state, the intel agencies, if there was a stand down order, or if this was indirect involvement, what's going to happen between now and the election? Because President Trump, I mean, I don't need to say this is obvious, but he's had just an enormous outpouring of support, not only from his base, but from people, I mean, you've seen it on X, people who were like, well, I didn't like President Trump, but this is just now I'd crawl over broken glass to vote for him. There's a realistic chance that he could win. In my opinion, that's probably why they forced Joe Biden to drop out, because they needed to change the news story away from the assassination. But what's going to happen between now and the election? Are they going to focus on him? Are they going to focus just on the electioneering to try to rig the actual, vote counts like they did the last time? I mean, how is the deep state going to react to this?
Well, that's a great question. Look, they tried to kill Trump, in my view. It's 100% an inside job. That's my opinion. It's also my opinion that gravity's real, water's wet, birds fly in the sky, fish swim in the ocean, and the Easter Bunny doesn't exist. So they tried to kill him because trying to take him off the ballot and all the criminal indictments and all the civil stuff has failed and only backfired. The next thing on the trajectory, as I predicted, would be assassination. So now that he's way more popular than he was, does that make them want to kill him more or less? No, now they're even more desperate to kill him. And I've told the Trump family that. I've told Trump that. I've told them that. They're getting private security now. That's good with the former, current, he says another name now, Blackwater head, Eric Prince. And so, yeah, it's on. We are in a hot war right now. And I just can't believe that I said last week, and I just remembered it when you talk about predictions, over and over again. I remember twice doing it. I probably did it 10 times. They're going to kill Biden, maybe poison him, say he's had a stroke, or disappear him. And I said I wouldn't be surprised if he isn't locked up like Woodrow Wilson his last 6 months, in the White House, drugged up. We don't know where he is. So this is a big deal. These guys are desperate. They're going for broke. And so the sky's the limit.
Okay, I want to go back to the lawfare stuff against you, because I think the conservative movement at large actually made a big mistake at the time that you were booted off of Twitter. Obviously not. This was long before Elon Musk owned it, long before it was X. I think the conservative movement made a mistake. You can defend someone even if they're saying something that you don't want to be associated with. But as you know, a lot of the conservative movement, especially Republican establishment figures, are cowards. They don't want to speak up in unpopular or uncomfortable ways. I think that was a mistake, and I don't want the conservative movement or the Republican Party to make that mistake a second time. So I want to ask you about what you expect to happen to yourself, what you expect to happen to your business, what you expect to happen to your speech. Do you think they're going to shut you down? Are they going to be successful? And if so, how are they going to do that?
Well, that's a long story, but yeah, the Justice Department on record has been trying to shut me down, and we'll either be shut in like 2 months, or we'll get a buyer for the assets because we're in bankruptcy liquidation. And the other side has said we don't want money, we don't even want a buyer, we don't want money because we want Alex Jones off air. Well, I'll just go someplace else. I'll still do a show. It'll just be a speed hump and mess with the crew, but they don't care. That's the orders they've been given. That's what they've been up to. But yeah, they created a straw man. They said I did things I never did. They had rigged trials where I was already found guilty. It was a dangerous precedent against everybody. But folks were more naive 6 years ago when this process started. And I think people have woken up. But yeah, when I was first banned everywhere, people I even knew for a long time would say, hey, I can't come on your show, or you can't come on mine. We don't want to get banned. So they're very good at picking off a few people, hoping others then go, oh, well, since they only picked off one person, or then another and another and another, that they'll be safe. Then finally it was Trump got picked off. Trump got shut down. So I think that lesson's learned, and I don't blame those people in hindsight.
No, in fact, if I may offer a mea culpa, there was a situation when Dinesh D'Souza was convicted of that now obviously bogus campaign finance. He was targeted for that, right? That was an unequal standard. I remember feeling the same way, being like, well, he did break the law, didn't he? And now looking back, I'm like, that was one of those watershed moments. And I missed it at the time. I didn't recognize that they were using him, targeting him because he'd committed this tiny, tiny little infraction that all politicians and people generally do, not endorsing it, just stating the obvious. And I didn't recognize it as a watershed moment. So I also don't mean animosity towards the conservative movement. Republican politicians, sure, animosity towards them. But a lot of us are more awake now than we were, 10 years ago.
Well, that's it. And again, you're super young, so it's amazing you were even on back then. But the point is that I ran towards D'Souza when that happened because he didn't even know it was a crime. He got his friends to donate some money. and then they made him a political prisoner. So I've done that for a long time. They try to pick off key people and then hope we're ashamed of them and don't defend them. And again, Republicans always wanted to be part of the media. They wanted the New York Times to like them. But now Republicans get, you don't want the New York Times to like you. That's a bad thing. I remember when Rand Paul, 8, 9, 10 years ago, whenever it was, first won his Senate campaign. He was on the show. We were the biggest people raising money for him. And the Politico called me after he won, and they said, how could we have beaten him? And I said, well, if you endorsed him, he would have lost. So it's the fact that you're attacking him, he won. And they got caught with Democrat employees dressed up like KKK members, supporting him. And, of course, that blew up in their face. And then even Rand Paul, was, scared to come on my show as if I need him on my show. And then years later, he called in and wanted to be on the show. And I don't even need him. It's like boring. No one watches. And nothing against Rand Paul. He does a great job policy-wise. But my listeners would rather hear news and clips and my analysis. I don't need Senator Paul on. I don't need Donald Trump on. I don't need any of those people on. I'm trying to support them. But it gets into this thing with their politicos and their advisors about, like we're in high school again, and what's the cool group, and no, people want rebels. They want avant-garde. They want tip of the spear. They want change. They want populism. And that's where Infowars is. So the Lord works in mysterious ways. We've been through hell for 6 years, hell before that. I've been there 30 years. I've been fired many times, lost everything multiple times. So to me, going through all this, I don't think about it, how's Alex Jones doing? I think about it, how are we changing the world? How are we turning things around? Because I really am a romantic. I mean, I really am somebody that cares. I'm the opposite of a sociopath. And so I'm all about the mission. So the more pain I get, it means the more I'm over the target. That's an old World War II thing where they had radar. They'd fly the B-17s and Liberators and Lancasters in over Germany and Italy and places. And the Germans would set up their anti-aircraft over the factories, over the troop bases. And so we knew to fly, my grandfather knew to fly into the flak. So my job is easy. I find the attack, I find the flak, I find the place I'm under most attack, and like a metal detector, I hone in on the pain. So that's what it's about.
There were some people, I think it was Elon Musk on X, said that J.D. Vance, this was the day that Trump announced J.D. as his vice presidential running mate, said that J.D. Vance was assassination insurance. Do you think that that's an accurate analysis? Is he going to provide some of that?
I've said that before with Roger Stone, yeah. A J.D. Vance, a Tulsi Gabbards, somebody like that is definitely anti-establishment. She's not perfect, but they definitely don't like her. Now, she was winning those debates, the Democrats, and they shut her down. But a J.D. Vance or somebody like that would be insurance, assassination insurance. Marco Rubio would be, Trump's death knell. It'd be Trump signing his own death warrant. Just like if Kamala Harris brings Hillary in as her VP, she could kiss her ass goodbye.
What about RFK? So I actually ran into RFK at the RNC a week and a half ago, and I was sort of surprised to see him there because he seems to want support of independents, but he has seemed to be trying to stay away from all the Republicans who would have otherwise liked him. Especially, I think there's a coalition of, the proverbial suburban housewife or suburban moms who like him because of his reporting on vaccines and vaccine injuries. And there was talk that the Trump campaign was trying to do something with him. We saw that leaked phone call. He said his son leaked the phone call, or it was reported that his son leaked that phone call between he and Trump agreeing with RFK on vaccines. What do you think will happen if the Trump campaign brings RFK into the fold to try to reform the big pharma, CDC, FDA revolving door?
I like RFK Jr. He's done a lot on glyphosates and toxic waste dumping, real environmental issues, and poison shots. He's very articulate, very smart, but he just doesn't fit in with Trump in overall policy in general. But I think bringing him in as a vaccine czar or the head of Trump's environmental operation would be good because even RFK has come out now and said the carbon taxes are BS. He's changed his tune. So I think RFK Jr. should have a role in the future administration.
Yeah, I hope he does. I disagree with him on a lot of social policy, but I would probably put myself in the category as that, suburban housewife, suburban mom that likes his reporting on the big pharma conspiracy. And let me end this interview with a question that I think the deep state thinks about a lot and the conservative movement doesn't think about, and that's the psychological toll that being targeted by lawfare takes on one of the targets. So I want to hear your take. I mean, I experience a fraction of what you experience, a mere fraction, being told that I'm evil and bad and bigoted online, which doesn't bother me. But when your family's at risk, when your assets are at risk, when your livelihood's at risk, how do you handle that and how are you doing?
My biggest problem is me not exercising enough, eating too much, drinking too much. So my biggest problem is Alex Jones. I've known I was in a fighting operation. I've known that I was in a very, very dangerous profession. And I got into this on purpose, knowing what I was getting into, and I'm exactly where I want to be. So this is a war for the future of humanity. And so targeting my family's not fun. They've done some of that, but my family's tough. And at the end of the day, things would be a lot worse for everybody if I didn't do what I'm doing. So, yeah, the deep state wants to hurt people. They want to put pressure on you. They want to break you. So there's a thing, as a man particularly, when somebody's trying to break you, it makes you stronger. So it's like steel sharpens steel, as they say. So I really want to thank the deep state and the establishment for all the things they've done to me. And I mean that. Because it's made me a better man, and it's made me be stronger, and I've made mistakes as well. And most of the critiques are always some made-up thing, but a lot of times the critiques actually help me be a better person. And so, Garth Brooks wrote some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. I would say some of God's greatest gifts are your enemies coming against you. And so I'm actually very thankful for my enemies. I feel sorry for them and the type of people they are. But I can see how God uses the devil to keep the righteous in line. So I see God at work. The God works in mysterious ways. And so I actually bless and pray for my enemies and thank them for everything they've done.
And I think that's one of the reasons why they fear you. The day that Elon reinstated you on X, you posted a documentary that you did on the Bilderberg group. This was something that you did like maybe 15 years ago. It was a while back that you'd done that. Do you have that as a recommendation or something else? If you were telling our viewers one piece of information or media that they should consume to really help them understand how to think like the left, what do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I made In-Game, Blueprint for Global Enslavement in 2007. It's evergreen. It's ultra green. It's more pertinent today than it was then. If you've got 2.5 hours to go watch it, you got to search around. It's at man.video. You can find it on X. I should repost it again because it kind of gets buried. And just follow me on X at Real Alex Jones. And I mean, it's all right there. But things are moving so quickly. I mean, I think of all the films I made, books I wrote, that's important. I've got my new book. And the last book before that was #1 New York Times bestseller. That was The Great Reset and The War for the World. My newest book's also been a bestseller, and that's The Great Awakening, The Plan to Defeat the Globalists and Launch the Second Great Renaissance. So people should get the book. But whatever they do, just please realize that if Infowars does get shut down in the near future, they'll be able to find me wherever we pop up. Please look for us, and we're going to come back and try to rehire the crew and continue on.
Thanks so much, Alex Jones. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and I love your show. And please come on my show soon.
Thank you. I would love to. We'll talk soon.
Get you on next week. Thank you, or this week. Thank you.
To live in this time, every other presidential election, let's just say this, is going to be boring after this election cycle. Nothing is ever going to compare to the 2024 presidential election cycle. Guys, make sure that you are subscribed to my show. Go to Apple Podcasts, go to The Liz Wheeler Show, click subscribe. Leave me a review on Apple Podcasts. That's where I'm going to be reading comments from. So tell me your comments. I'm going to read them on air. Also, go to YouTube and subscribe over there. It's youtube.com/Liz Wheeler. Make sure you hit that notification bell because otherwise I worry you may not see my episodes when I drop them because YouTube likes to stifle my content. So make sure that you get notified every time I have a new episode for you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show.